Alpha Males. Anthony Dream Johnson here, president of the Manosphere, patriarch objectivist. In today's interview, we're going to have Gay Luboil, one of the most extreme apex alpha males in the Manosphere. We're talking about his new book, The Pillars of Wisdom. There it is. It's a big fat book, very thick. If you're retarded, you won't be able to read it. It's really good stuff. A lot of pictures too, in case you're a low IQ alpha male, but most of you will not be low IQ alpha males. Otherwise, if you are, get the fuck off my channel. Anyway, I'm looking forward to. I've actually met this guy once before too in real life. A lot of beta males in the Manosphere don't like get off their ass and get out of the house and like meet anybody in real life. I actually met this guy in California. We went through a workout and stuff and had dinner back in November, late 2016. There's a little interview too. Some of you might have seen if you're really old school. Anyway, without further ado, helpfully welcome Gay Luboil to my channel. What's up, bro?
Glad to be back after all these years. Missed you.
Man. Yeah, it's been a while.
A lot of adventures, a lot of things happened, and a lot of misinformation that I think you and me can clear up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I've really been enjoying your book, man, a lot.
Thank you.
Not blowing smoke up your ass. It's like it has me cracking up laughing like every day.
A lot of people buy my book because they want to support me as a writer. They don't understand that it's a real book. Like it's 400 pages. It's thick. It's a real philosophy book. I have an index. Unlike everyone in the Manosphere, I did my work. If you see this bookshelf behind me, I read all of it. I did it, and it's a real book with just theory dense. And people think that's a sales pitch, but it's not. So that's what I'm really excited to talk about.
One thing I wanted to ask right off the bat is going through it. I've read your stuff on and off over the years. Every once in a while, even if I wasn't, hitting you up on Telegram, I would check your Reddit account, see the posts you had been publishing, and just laugh my ass off. Because of how good it was and how funny, the way you kind of hyperbolize and satirize things, but are also conveying your actual important ideas to you. Like you're actually like working on, like you're saying, philosophy, and you're not just dicking around with praxology and hypergamy and this other gay shit. But my question was, how much of the book is actually original content versus cleaned up and organized posts that were already on your Reddit? Because a lot of them I've already seen, and it's good to reread them. But
so what happened with me was, first of all, my Reddit account was triple banned. Okay. So Reddit banned me. Then the main moderator of Red Pill School, he banned me. He wiped me. And then on top of that, if you go to my profile, there's articles that are also like shadow banned.
Some of them are deleted. I actually wanted to ask you about one. It was just gone. But most of them, a lot of them still work though. I was checking it just the other day.
Some of them work, some of them don't. But the hardest hitting ones on, let's say, Ukraine or the pandemic are gone.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing is, for people to read me, they have to go through so many layers of censorship that I went out of my way to make a book, because once you have my book, they have to go into your house and take the book from your possession.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I've been getting, unlike the fake Manosphere, I've been getting censored. I like to say, if you're a real red pill, why aren't you being censored?
Yeah,
where's the censorship? If you're anti-system, you should be getting censored, to some degree. They're not, I am. And that's why I'm really anxious to mail my book out to my fan base, your fan base, or anyone who wants genuine red pill content.
Speaking of that, there's a link, by the way, in the description, guys, for his book directly to your website, because it's not on Amazon. You're printing it through Lulu and selling it that way, right?
Yeah, because I'm afraid, once again, Amazon's going to start deleting things. So it's thepillarsofwisdom.com. There's so many layers of censorship now that you got to... Yeah, it's one of those.
Dude, I had that at the last day of 2021. YouTube, out of nowhere, with no warning, they swiped $11,000 from our Google account and deleted all of our monetization. They didn't delete the channel, but they just instantly removed all of the money, all that kind of crap. And I was able to get it back. It took about 2 months. I had to get my lawyer involved to kind of threaten them and stuff. And they actually ended up reversing what they did, which was shocking. But yeah, the channel's still shadow banned on top of that. And even with that, it was just a huge pain in the ass to see that much money get sucked out without any fucking reason, without any warning at all. Just this absolute scam shadow ban crap.
What a lot of the viewers don't understand is, as a content creator, we have to, let's say for you, find the people, get the venue, do all that work. for me, read all these books, refine it into something that's fun and readable, plus deal with shenanigans. Right. And the better your stuff, or the better your convention, the better your book, the more shenanigans you have to deal with.
Yes. And
over time, it's just you're dealing with shenanigans. That there's let's say mainstream media shenanigans, but the manosphere is incredibly toxic, right? So then you have to deal with your own internal shenanigans.
Well, when you say toxic, you probably don't mean it like the standard, like the feminists will say it's toxic and this and that, and you're teaching toxic masculinity, but you probably mean more like these beta retards who are like LARPing as alphas and LARPing as red pill kind of stuff.
So if you look at their books, so if you, let's say, look at like 48 Laws of Power, right? Or they're using liberal Machiavellian tactics, right? And so the same hold frame games that they play on women, they're basically acting like, if you saw, what's it called, Office Space, Lumbergh, like a 1990s office manager, right? So they're going to play 1990s office manager tactics with you to the detriment of anything else. They need to be in the center, and theory or moving things forward or helping men, they want to 48 Laws of Power Machiavellian you. So I guess that's the fight.
Okay. So one thing I really wanted to ask you, actually made the thumbnail the whole podcast today. And this is just like random out of your book and something random you wrote. So we have November coming up. It's a big time of the year for these beta males. No Nut November. But you actually wrote a whole post called "Destroy Your Dick December." So can you elaborate for the beta males and the NoFap cult? What's the difference between No Nut November and Destroy Your Dick December? I really love this chapter of your book.
Okay, so when you look at the manosphere, you want to look at the entire part of it, right? So they all jerk off to porn, and because they all jerk off. The camera went off.
You just got shadow banned by the government, bro. Talking about jerking off. You can still hear you fine though.
Yeah. So sorry.
I'll get to sit here while you talk about jerking off and you're not on camera, just with me. Okay, great.
Yeah, so I guess the
I don't know if the guy, I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me.
Fixing your...
I'm fixing my camera. So basically, they all jerk off to porn all the time, and that's the main thing. And so they need a beta male like Jordan Peterson to make themselves feel better. So it's kind of a yin yang, right? There's like the dark side of jerking to porn and the light side of like a Peterson morality daddy.
Well, you call him Jordan Coperson, actually, which
Jordan Coperson or Jordan Cuckerson.
Yeah.
And so it's not that they stop jerking off. It's that they're saving up for a big mega jerk off. And I guess where I want to like pivot this conversation into
that's a sentence I've never heard before, by the way. Brand new sentence. I love it.
Where if you look at the manosphere, they're surrounded by prostitutes. Like if you look at Rollo, he's surrounded by prostitutes, all
Literally.
of them, right? And so, how do you get that sexual preference from jerking to porn all the time? And I guess one of the things that I realized is that.
I mean, you described No Nut November basically as a giant foreplay month, right? For Destroy Your Dick December.
It's a big foreplay month, but a lot of the manosphere has sex with prostitutes to the point where someone who habitually has sex with prostitutes has to repress it out of their mind that they have sex with prostitutes. So right now on the Red Pill, there's like a guide on how to have sex with models. They're not models, they're prostitutes. So the issue is, it's not real sexual strategy. It's just prostitute buying, right? But
a lot of you mentioned the what'd you call it, the Red Pill for minorities. So Fed and Shit podcast in Miami, they literally just pay women to fuck anyway, pay for box they call it. But this is what they do, like left and right all day long.
So my argument is, now I'm back. So what I want to say is if you're paying for sex, that's not a red pill. That's a blue pill. And in my mind, you're disqualified. It's over. And so what makes my book innovative is I say, look, every generation of women is different. They respond to different stuff because they're conditioned by different social media, right?
Mm.
And so there's, if you look at the 2000s, there's Gen X women where you know all the old PUA people, right? Ross Jeffries with his VHS cassettes. Ross Jeffries would give a woman a 1 hour speech, right? So he was super long format. Then Mystery is shorter format, and then current TikTok women is really, really short format. So in my book, I discuss that. I'm like, look, like if you want to approach the current 20-year-old, it's TikTok format. And I'd post that, I'd write about it, and they'd be like, no, that's not true. All women are the same. Well, all prostitutes are the same. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing I want to talk about is, where does this idea of alpha come from? Like, like you led a convention. You got all these men together. Wow, amazing leadership. Amazing, right?
Thank you.
But and they're difficult personalities. I know. Like, all these guys are drama queens. Like, they're super.
Yes.
They're like the most drama queens. So for you to gather all of them together is amazing, right? It's like champion cat herder, right?
That's right. Admiral Cat Herder.
Admiral, but
it's not all fun. I mean, like you're saying, a lot of them are drama queens. I mean, look at Cuck Murphy. This is a guy who came to my convention who told men how to be an apex alpha male. He was doxxed by Antifa. Oh, boo-hoo, he's a victim. Meanwhile, he was literally banging transsexual women. He was peeing on his wife. He was farting on his wife. She was farting on him. Like, this is sick, dude.
So he got that from pornography. That's a pornography behavior that he learned, right? So
I mean, that's
pornography.
A lot of whack porn, but yeah.
Where do the behaviors come from? Porn. But what I want to say is, the reason why you can't have innovation, the reason why,
in the manosphere,
in the manosphere, is because a lot of the people in the manosphere have sex with prostitutes. And so when you're like, okay, well, this is how I approach a 20-year-old girl, they're like, well, no, that's not how it works for me in Las Vegas. And I'm like, shut the fuck up about Las Vegas. No one gives a fuck. That's a whore. It's a hooker. So your hooker stuff doesn't count.
Yeah, the end of your book, I think the very end of your book actually deals with this, right? How to fuck phone-tarded sluts. I think I like that. Phone-tarded is pretty good.
Right. So they're messed up by their phone, and you have to deal with that, right? Yep. But notice, every man watching this knows that the psyche of the modern 20-year-old woman is different. But where's the theory that addresses that and says, okay, they have this mental thing going, and you have to take that into account, right? I'm the only one who's ever done it, because I'm the only one who read the stuff and is trying to adapt to the contemporary dating market.
Your name, Gay Lube Oil, shocks a lot of people. They hear it and they're like, oh, it must be a weirdo, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, let's talk.
But what I find, though, is that you're one of the only men I've ever seen in the manosphere, and I mean this sincerely, who takes ideas and philosophy seriously. And the other 90 to 98% of manospherians, whether they're the common man or a content creator, they don't do that. Someone like the Homo Tomasi, for example, was explicitly, I don't make an ideology, it's a praxology. Like, there's never any serious discussion about ideas, especially big picture ones, which is what I've noticed in your work.
Well, so what my big innovation is to say, look, if you're trying to date women, you're doing sociology, you're doing psychology, and you're doing economics, right?
Yeah.
Women are a symptom of the society they're in. You want to find good women, you need to find a place that middle-class fathers did a good job for the past 20 years, right? And so, which I think is obvious, like if you want a good car, you need to go to a place that has good factories for a long time, right? Like, it's just production. And when I would bring these ideas up, they would delete me. Yeah. So, like 10 years ago, when I would write on the Red Pill, when I was in my 20s, they would constantly delete me. So my relationship with Rollo is him and his butt friends would delete me over and over and over again. And then I cornered him on two issues. One is, if you're anti-feminist, that's an ideology. Because if you're a red pill, like if you're feminism is an ideology, anti-feminism is an ideology. Both sides are ideological. He can't get that. He's too stupid for that one. The other one is the idea that value is relative. So if you go to an airport, a bottle of water has one price versus at Costco, it's another price, right? So the basic market arbitrage that in some places things are cheaper than in other places. He can't get that. And any relativism, which is basic economics, he can't stand for. So I kept banging him on those points, and I bullied him off of Reddit. Yeah. And then he was like, oh, this guy's a Nazi, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of skedaddled somewhere else. And then he went to your convention, did the same shit, skedaddled somewhere else. Now he's on YouTube. He's going to get banged up, and he's going to skedaddle into something else. And it's not just his pattern, it's the whole sphere. And I guess
he's a reflection of a lot of guys in the manosphere. I mean, especially the worst elements of it, the gamma males, the extreme beta males, these guys who are stuck hopeless. They're hopeless, basically.
So you can bang Rollo all day, right?
I don't want to bang Rollo all day. You can bang him all day.
Maybe his beta males can bang him all day, but he's not going to go anywhere because he has this base of losers. And if Rollo acts like a loser, and then he says, when I act like a complete loser, that's actually alpha. And then they're like, okay. And that just gives them license, right?
Caveat, I have hundreds of text messages that I can screenshot of Rollo bitching to me almost daily about you specifically, you and Pat Stedman, for about 2 years, every fucking day on Twitter DMs or my actual cell phone. He would bitch. Did you see what GLO, he called you GLO. GLO did today. GLO, GLO. I met you at that point, obviously, but I didn't have a fucking problem with you. And every fucking day, this guy would actually take time out of his life to bitch to me about you. But I didn't give a fuck one way or the other. Just every fucking day. You're like, you alpha widowed him.
Well, so you really alpha widowed him because you're hiding behind.
It's a gangbang alpha widow.
It's a big gangbang. Back 10 years ago, I was 24 years old. I was managing a gym. And then I would read books and I'd read articles. And I thought, running a gym isn't the most intellectual thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read these books back here, and I'm going to write articles that a construction worker can read and apply, right? And Rollo at the time was like 45. And he got this secret resentment against me. And I'm just someone who's like, oh, the red pill? Oh, it's a writing competition. Who can write the best article? I want to write the best. It was like a little sport, right? And this whole drama developed secretly, and then it culminated in my articles being deleted, which is,
what I want to ask you about either now or later in the interview. It's not that big of a deal. It was women. It's one that I saw that was actually deleted on the red pill, and it was "Women Want to Be Owned," I think is the title.
Yeah, so the argument is that the women in our current legal system de facto don't belong to their husband. They belong to the state. Like the same way like your house doesn't actually belong to you, the government can take it from you whenever they want.
Yeah,
right?
You're gonna pay your taxes on along property taxes.
If they right, or if they really don't like you, they'll just figure out some shit and then they'll fucking take it from you, right?
Eminent domain and shit like that.
So one of the things that they do, like I think some of these Supreme Court judges, there's like a weird retroactive rape where they go out to a woman and say, well, back in time, say that he raped you, right? And so the government eminent domains women, which from a legal theory, I think is really fascinating. And I have, I believe, a well-worded article on that. And I haven't seen that covered anywhere else.
Well, women used to be the property of their husbands too, and it was under the, I think the legal term was coverture. And this was the case in like the 1700s in what was, the early United States, the colonies then. This was the case throughout even the 1800s, and I think it began changing. And then this kind of ended finally once and for all. In 1969, before 1969 in the United States, you could not rape your wife. It was impossible. And then bit by bit, the states changed it, and then eventually, it doesn't matter if you're married, you can be accused of raping your wife, which is just insane. historically.
Well, so look at how the government treats any other asset, right? So your bank can take, as soon as you deposit your money in the bank, it's the bank's,
That's right.
So if your bank steals the money and you steal it back, right? So it's the same logic. So whatever's happening with other, let's say, objects, they also do with women. So the legal theory is consistent.
Yeah.
But for, like,
the bank can't
sorry.
take your cash if you got cash in your house, dude. They can't take
Right.
shit. Cash is
So-
king until they ban cash.
But I guess what I want to say is there's a lot of fascinating discussions we could have been having around gender. Some of them are controversial. Some of them are more legalistic. We could have been having this conversation for 10 years. But
Yep.
because of censorship and because of shit, Rolo needs to be at the center of everything.
Yep.
All those platforms, let's say, Reddit, where you could compete by being a writer. Now I'm forced to be on camera, right? So now YouTube, and then also your convention, all of these really amazing conversations, we can't have them until we push those losers out.
Yeah.
So
There's a reason I'm working on my own book. I haven't announced it publicly yet. I've told you about it. And yeah, I mean, a lot of your takes on the wider manosphere, the kind of big picture bird's eye view that you have it, yeah, it's like it's a disaster. 90% of these guys are just hopeless betas, hopeless losers. They're never going to change. They don't want to change. They're happy slaves that don't want to leave the fucking plantation. Whether it's the plantation of feminism or the plantation of the roll up pill, they don't want to do anything. They just want to stay home and jerk off basically forever.
Also, I would hope that some betas would write a good article anyway. You know what I mean? You can be a beta and dig through books and find something interesting. But if you look, these people don't actually do work.
Yeah.
And so, like, why am I the only person in the manosphere digging through texts? Or there's, you read my article on space, castrated space, right?
I think so. I've read most of the book now, almost all of
Yeah,
it.
okay, so there's Henry Lefebvre, and he says that every kind of behavior is displayed in a space, and if you're being dominated by a woman, then that's going to show up in your house. You can see who runs the house by how it's decorated.
Yeah. This is
right?
really good. This is a good essay you wrote, and you were really mocking man caves and shit like that. These little cuck caves, I think you call it.
Cuck chambers, right? Like you're in a man ghetto. And so I have a book, Henry Lefebvre, up here, which is really dense. It's written in Hegelese, and I made it practical. And I think setting the frame by controlling the decor of your house is actually a very important conversation that no one has ever heard of before up until this moment.
Yeah.
Right? So the manosphere,
this is very real too. Like I'm married, I have a kid, I have a family, and these issues these play out in real life. Women just want to decorate everything the way they want. And you can be this what do you call it, beta male turd, this formless turd who just goes with whatever. Or you can put your foot down and say, nope, that's gay, we're not doing that. That's gay color, not doing that. That's okay, you can do that.
When you decorate your house, you need to make sure that you didn't go like eat, pray, love on one side, but on the other hand, that you didn't push your woman out to where now she's excluded from central living space. But once again, like, everyone has a house. There's a lot of married couples. There's a lot of couples. Where is that article? Well, guess what? It's an article that could have been on the red pill if I wasn't triple censored.
Yeah. I didn't know Red Pill School banned you too. I mean, I knew he always
a
long time ago.
So what happened with Red Pill School is I'm doing it today. He's a fat programmer whose wife doesn't fuck him, and his whole deal is that he got doxxed because he had a government job, right? And like you can go Wikipedia him, and so he got traumatized by that, right? Beyond that, now he has kind of like a safe space Discord channel where they're just a bunch of fat guys who drink beers and hire hookers. So his friend, I called him fat. I'm like, you're fat and you drink a lot of alcohol and you don't read. Like, what's wrong with you? Then they accused me of doxing. Didn't dox anyone. Then they deleted me off the red pill. So basically, they have an alpha male fantasy. If you're like, look, like, let's move forward intellectually, physically, they get really threatened and they push you out. And that's why every red pill space is a beta male safe space. That's what Rollo wanted. Rollo wanted for your convention to be his beta male safe space, and he wants YouTube to be a beta male safe space, right?
Yeah.
When you confront Rollo, by the way, I don't know why no one else has said this. He makes this like weird, like deer in the headlights look. Like you'll say something like, "Oh, this is a line." You'll see he like kind of like freezes, and you're like, "Dude, like you can't control your own facial reactions." So
he's very womanly. He's very, very feminine.
He does this thing, and I have an article called "Goofy Schmoofy Time."
I love
and
that.
They make
Goofy Schmoofy cycle. Yeah.
And so at the top of this,
I've actually stolen Goofy Schmoofy. It's my new favorite thing. Goofy Schmoofy beta males. Goofy Schmoofy goofballs and Goofy Schmoofy beta males is the new thing for everybody I don't like.
If you confront them with the truth, they're going to freeze, forget. If you keep doing it, they have a psychological meltdown and then rediscover themselves at the bottom. And that's going to happen every single time.
Yeah, and it's an endless cycle that they usually don't escape, right? It's like a snake eating its tail, just over and over and over again, back and back and forth. Yeah,
it's the Goofy Schmoofy cycle, and
that's something I've seen. I've been in the Manosphere since 2005. I found the PUA wing of it in high school, and I've been operating it ever since in one form or another, usually as an event organizer and stuff. But mostly these guys never really change. They never take any action. They never improve. It's always the illusion of improvement, or even like multiple layers of like, jerking themselves off mentally. Like I loved how you called the Manosphere a giant circle jerk with sub or miniature circle jerks going on inside of it. And then there's even like circle jerks inside of
those circle jerks.
Yeah, it's circle jerkception, basically.
It's like it's an endless. What's that mathematical thing called? The fractals. It's a fractal of circle jerk.
Yeah, it's an infinite loop of
as above, so below, circle jerk.
Yeah.
I guess.
Can you elaborate though? Like, why is the Manosphere a circle jerk? Because there's going to be red pill beta males who are like, I do hypergamy, I'm red pill, and there'll be some betas who are like, these little douchey feminists who watch this and they're going to be like, why is he saying the Manosphere is a circle jerk? What does that really mean in your book?
So if you go into, let's say, Lacan up here or Zizek or Hegel stuff, the way you improve is you have to change the core unary feature. So there's always a central pivot point that you have to shift, right? And so usually for men, it's something economic, right? So you could, let's say, move overseas and cut your taxes, right? You could get multiple streams of income. There's always some kind of central pivot point that's hard. Like let's say with bodybuilding, like you learn how to squat high rep and heavy, right? And then your whole body transforms, right? Or you get a rice cooker and a George Foreman grill, and now you eat more meals. There's always a central point. They never address that central point, and they always do symptoms over and over and over again. And so it's like a landlord that repaints the wall. Mm-hmm. They never change the foundation.
The landlord special, you call it.
The landlord special. But they're doing a landlord special with themselves as a human being, which is disgusting. The other thing is, if they can jump to the next thing, they don't have to acknowledge their failure of the previous thing. So you'll notice when you confront Rollo and you really corner him and beat his fucking face in, he'll go, and then he'll run to another platform, do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's not, he's just the most, let's say, prominent figure that most people know. But realistically, whatever he's doing, everyone else is doing. They never address it, right?
He runs like a little church. I see it inside of the Manosphere and inside of the Red Pill, and he has like acolytes, like little priests who regurgitate his stuff. But also, you've seen too, like Andrew Tate and just Pearly Things. This chick, they kind of stole the Red Pill from him, and they ran away with it, like taking candy from a baby. And this has really irritated him, in my view. Watching him kind of bitch about these people and stuff, he fucking hates it.
I mean, first of all, with Andrew Tate, like I don't want to comment on any controversy, but Andrew Tate really knew how to take advantage of platforms, right?
Yeah,
because
really well.
He distributed pornography, and part of that is that. So to say that Andrew Tate stole, like it was out in the culture, and Rollo has 2 points, like just saying hypergamy over and over again and never admitting you're wrong, like a fucking, a Karen.
I'm saying this
So
from my perspective of when I knew him and talked to him all the time. Him branding himself with the red pill was really something, and he would always, of course, gaslight the opposite. Oh, the red pill is open source. I love open debate. We should always be willing to debate. That's all bullshit. He always wanted to take ownership of it as a branding mechanism with the manosphere, and that's what I'm saying is I see Andrew basically took it. Like if you Google red pill manosphere, I don't think you're going to find a lot of Rollo. You're going to find a bunch of news articles about Andrew Tate or Pearly things, and they're a lot bigger than him and have a lot more fans than him, and this drives him insane. It doesn't matter if they give him credit or not for anything, not that he even deserves it. It's that he hates being the underdog in this kind of stuff.
the manosphere, there's like a tech tree, right? So, I tech tree theory, right? That you can tech tree bodybuilding. And then there's also like a tech tree of media publicity. And Andrew Tate correctly identified that if he maximizes publicity, that's the core thing that he needs to do.
For his values, yeah, for sure.
And the other thing is everyone in the manosphere is kind of an asshole. Like I think you and me went back and forth at it early on.
Yeah.
So if you're in the manosphere, expect to get slapped across the face and accept like it's like being a professional wrestler, right? So to say like, oh, he stole blah blah blah, the manosphere is a dirty place. So
yeah.
That's just something people need to accept as a cost of participation.
I mean, I don't know how much you've actually stolen from people or plagiarized, but Rollo has plagiarized a lot. I've had guys off the red pill that used to message me, DM me specific stuff they wrote like 2014, 2015, and wouldn't you know it, an almost exact duplicate ends up on his blog, Rollo's blog, like 2 years later. There's no credit, there's no nothing. They're just like lifting. That's what he calls it, lifting. I'm lifting this kind of shit.
I mean, I would say that go read real books. Go read economics. Go read about how is space constructed. My book's built on psychoanalysis and everyone else is built on ego psychology, right? So go innovate, go work on it. Yeah. And in terms of lifting, I repurposed other people's theories, but if you compare me to the rest of the manosphere, I come at it from a completely different angle. A more academic angle. Yeah.
You're constantly referring to people too. Like you're not, I don't see you, your thinking seems original. And I say that as someone who's just been watching the space for a long fucking time. So yeah, you're reading Hegel and stuff, whatever, but you're writing your own content and you're referring to people. And I don't think you're like you're not trying to like paper stuff over. Like you just thought everything up on your own.
Yeah. I'm not trying to pretend to be Hegel. So
yeah, it's stupid.
So the thing is like, there's not enough drive for new. And that like, this is my next point. The space is exhausted. Is exhausted. And Donovan Tripe, a person who I advised in the use of anabolic steroids, you can tell he's out of content and he's bleeding down, right?
He's quit. He's officially quit. I mean, it's over. He's thrown in the towel. He's fucking done, which is awesome. And he blames me, which I love.
Well, he should blame himself because I think he said he had 100K something followers, and if he made whatever, if he read some books, applied it, if he created a new product, if he did something new, he'd be perfectly fucking fine.
I don't think he's ever had an original idea in his life. I mean, he would suck off a Rollo's tit for as much as he could to be like a little Rollo priest and that kind of stuff. But I know, for example, too, he repurposed an entire course he made that he just stole from the Book of Pook. So he would find this, you know what that is. He just find old manosphere stuff like that, take out a section and then dump it into a course and kind of have his fat fucking wife, put it into like a little thing. But it's just completely stolen. The guy's
why can't,
but con artist.
I mean, I'm not the only person who could read a book. Like they could read a book. They could pay someone to read a book for them. Like, everyone brags about how much money they have. Okay. If you're stupid, a lot of people can't fucking read. Hire someone who can read. A bunch of European professors helped me put together the psychoanalysis and the Deleuzian aspects of my book, right? So they helped me. I know when I'm bad at something, I'm going to employ the help of others, right? But if you look at the back of my book, it's all like hard theory. Academics help me, So I'd shit on fucking Peterson too.
I hate Jordan Peterson so bad.
Okay, thank you. Peterson, me and Anthony were in the lead in 2016. They shadow banned all of us and redirected everything to Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read Peterson's book, there's no content. It's like, if you see a kitty, go pet a kitty. I don't want to pet a kitty. I want, like, the world's changing, the economy's changing. What does it mean to be a man? I don't want to fucking pet a kitty, right? So Peterson, with all of his money, could have hired real theorists. There's tons of underemployed professors in Europe right now who helped me write my book. Why couldn't Peterson pay them? Because he's selfish. That's what I'm saying. Is it didn't have to be this way, but everyone's doing the bare minimum. They're doing the bare minimum for their audience. They're doing the bare minimum in terms of advancing language and theory. And that's why they're dying.
Peterson's like the epitome to me of someone who, what do you call it? Like a dumb guy, smart guy. A dumb guy's wise man. And this guy, like you're saying, his book, like I think you're referring to his book, 12 Rules of Life. Go pet a kitty. And then one of the rules of life is don't let your kids do something that makes you hate them. And then his daughter goes and fucks Andrew Tate, and she has herpes, and she's a single mom, and she takes nude selfies of herself. This is all over Instagram. Where she took a almost nude selfie with her 1-year-old daughter on a bed, on the ground, in the background. Like, she looks like a stripper. And it's like, this dude, it's like a lot of goofy manosphere guys. They preach exactly, Cuck Murphy says, go be an apex alpha male. Meanwhile, he's shoving a 12-inch hook up his fucking ass.
Well, that's his definition of he's a postmodern alpha. Yeah. And that's his definition. So when you analyze the red pill, it's you have to be a lawyer or a philosopher because they have their own definitions of words. So apex alpha for Cuck Murphy is what can he insert into himself. And so you have to detective read what they wrote, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's a big pain in the ass. I mean, someone even like the fraud father, Homo Tomasi, it's a constant game of just him making stuff up. I mean, what does Rollo? He writes all about women and this kind of shit. What the fuck does he know about women in terms of direct firsthand experience? Close to nothing.
Well,
is the reality.
We're really shit talking this guy. The way I understand him is he's an alcohol distributor in Nevada. And
he quit that years ago.
Okay. Yeah. And so, like, for me, in my mind, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm writing a book, I'm leading a company, whatever. Like, I'm running a gym in my mind. Like, I'm always a gym manager, right? I could write a philosophy book. In my mind, I'm a gym manager. In his mind, he is a alcohol distributor. And the women who he talks about are prostitutes. And I don't know if you've been to Reno, Nevada, like, you go skiing and then you go to like a bar there and they're just like, like Reno 911.
I've seen the show a little bit. Yeah.
It's those women. So when he says all women are like that, they're all Reno 911 women. And because for me, I was like, I grew up in California. I'm like, why doesn't his experience match mine? Well, because I don't pursue Reno, whatever that is. So I guess, yeah.
Did you know that the fraud father married an older post-war woman? So his name is George Miller. Her name is Melissa Miller. And he was 30 when they got married and she was 32. So he spent his, about 20 years on the internet bitching about older post-war women and don't ever marry an older post-war woman. That's exactly what he did. She's older than him and she was post-war. Not double post-war like Kahneman Sharp's wife. She was 40-something when they got married. But still, it's insane.
All of those people in the manosphere leak. So you'll see them, if you know a little bit of psychoanalysis, right? You'll catch them leaking. Whatever they accuse other people, like they've attacked me before. And I'm a Russian immigrant that moved to California, right? So I have a very specific life path, right? And when they accuse me of stuff, they're heritage Americans. They're Americans who grew up in the United States, racially American. So they accuse me of American things. So you're going to find a lot of projection and
leaking. I like the way, I didn't know you meant at first when you said that, but I understand what you're saying now. They're leaking out. Their psychology is basically like shit coming out of their mouth, just falling all over the place.
One of the things that I like to preach, and if the viewers can take something from this, is a person can lie to you with what they're saying, but they can't lie with how they put the sentence together. How you put the sentence together is the unconscious. So if you start looking at the grammar of how they phrase things or say things, you're going to see a lot of leaking. And the reason why I had to learn psychoanalysis, one, and then go teach it is for a long time, I was like, yo, what the fuck's wrong with these people? what's going on. And so I had to learn Freud, and then I had to learn Lacan, which is Freud plus linguistics, before I could piece together what's going on in their mind. And in a way, I'm grateful to them, because they put me down this path of I guess clinical experience, right? So obviously I'm not a psychoanalyst, but I've talked to so many people online that I now have clinical experience. And that's why when you read my book, you're going to find very, very specific things which I suffered through in my coaching program.
Yeah, and when I said, in the description of this video, I called it the most extreme manosphere book ever. And that's a little bit of hyperbole, but mostly not. It's real. Like, your book is going to be really challenging to beta males in general, but even like a pseudo red pill alpha male who thinks he's like king shit because he read hypergamy and jerked off inside of his head or something. Your book is very challenging to a lot of men, most men by far, I think.
So most books in the manosphere, if you remember Barnes and Noble, the only section for men was the business section. So every red pill book is just a rebranded business management book of how to be a 1990s office manager. But my book, I said, okay, I want to make a real book. I want to make a real red pill book that challenges people, that's gritty, that really hits it. Like I think who's the guy who wrote The Way of Men?
Jack Donovan.
Jack Donovan wrote a good book that's shocking, that really gets you. And obviously I'm trying to top everyone. I'm trying to be number one. But I think a red pill book should be shocking. It should be hard. And I also think that, like, you and me, we have a very specific language, right? And I wanted to capture our language in the written form. So it feels like you're dealing with two aggressive men like you and me, right? So
yeah. Your language is effective too, though. Like the way I love writing that in my newsletter. You write very similar to me. It's this extreme, over the top hyperbole, pee pee poo poo talk, you call it. But this actually captures the attention of millennials and Zoomers and stuff in a way that's useful. And for the ones that aren't totally fucking hopeless, it will actually like wake them up a little bit and move them in the right direction towards action.
I would say, like, even if, let's say you're a feminist and you're reading my book, what I'll say is, it should be fun for you. I got big because of feminists, because feminists would write hate pieces on me. So my fame in the red pill and how I grew the red pill back in the Reddit days is by writing in that style. Yeah. So they love my work. They don't agree with me, but the style is emotionally engaging for them.
Yeah, so you had a really good, I'll never forget reading it. I started cracking up. You talked about, because your book focuses on economics and stuff, which the fraud father and everyone else in the manosphere never even wants to talk about. So you look at like the social, sexual landscape, but then you look at like money and economics. And what that means today is the slow collapse of the middle class. And in your book, you described it, I think I can quote it, that they're going to liquidate the middle class and then scrape them off the Costco parking lot.
Right.
Which is really accurate. That's what they want to do, I think. But manosphere guys have no idea about this shit.
Well, so the manosphere wants to date middle class women, but they don't care about the middle class, which creates those middle class women. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to get too much into political predictions, but regardless of who's the president, they're still going to keep scraping this middle class because they're not profitable. The middle class is not profitable, which is why rentier capitalism or big bank capitalism is going to pound them and replace them with migrants.
Yeah.
And that's the end. When your local income falls below a certain point, no one goes to the mall and there's no dating. It's done.
The mall literally will collapse. In Orlando, where I just moved from, I mean, a lot of these malls that were, 10, 20 years ago were popping. They're dead now. They're closing up shop. They're demolishing stores. Left and right, there's almost nothing left in these malls, and that's all over America. That kind of shit's happening.
Right, and so notice, during the pandemic, I know you talked about it, and I know you got demonetized, deplatformed for it. I have articles about that, and I was the only one who said, "Hey, listen, if everyone's wearing a mask, everything's closed. This affects your dating life. This has something to do with sexual strategy, sexual dynamics," and no one talked about it. No one talked about it. And so that there's more crises down the road. And as those crises happen, you still have to be a man, you still have to be a father, you still have to date women, you still have to enjoy your youth. And I'm the only one who wrote about that. Whereas if you look at Peterson, who, got infused, Peterson got infused twice and then cried about it, and then now pretends to be against because he's a shill.
Infused with the doom juice, the death
doom
juice.
And we can't even say these words, right? Because then they'll shut everything down. And then the entire manosphere just acted like it never happened.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
So what I'm saying is it's going to happen more, and there has to be people who, one, can write about it and write about it in a way where they're at least not censored right away.
Yeah. I mean, in your book, I think you said that what we saw with the lockdowns and the masks and the doom juice and stuff, that's just a preview of the New World Order and stuff and what's to come, if it comes to fruition, which unfortunately looks likely at this point.
I believe it's just going to happen. Like, this election could slow it down, but long term, there's so much money in destroying the middle class and cashless society that they're just going to do it. And when that happens, you have to figure out a comprehensive strategy which still allows you to be a masculine man, whether that's expat or you're in the US somehow, but you need to start thinking ahead on how you're going to do that. And so
by thinking ahead, you mean the 5-10 years or more out. I mean, most guys can't think five days in advance, much less 5 to 10 years.
Right. So are you going to have solar panels? How are you getting water? How are you getting food? Right. Like during the lockdowns, we all had to figure out like how we're going to work out. Right. Are we just going to lose our amazing physiques? Like, what's up? But keep in mind, the manosphere, who's supposed to be red pill and alpha, with the exception of Andrew Tate, didn't talk about it. And the reason why Andrew Tate pumped ahead of everyone else is because he's the only one who talked about it. So if you're a red pill alpha, in quotes, right, you need to talk about the hard thing. And I would argue if your book's not controversial, then you're a motivational speaker. I don't know, something like that.
You're just puffing hot air out. Doesn't mean jack shit. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, if you're writing anything meaningful, how would it not be controversial today? Because everything is it's become so fucking vanilla, even in the manosphere. Vanilla, mundane, it just gets watered down. I mean, I think what we see now, like you're saying, the manosphere is tapped out and gassed out like a condom and sharp, just thrown in the towel. It's like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy that's just completely washed out. That, 10 years ago, like you're saying, you're writing controversial content, it would go viral on Reddit, and maybe something would go hit the front page, and maybe men would actually fucking listen and get out of the house and do something with their life. But now it's just like this endless circle jerk of like hypergamy and these hoes ain't loyal and just like this dumb shit.
Well, so we had a conversation, you and me, a bit earlier, and you're like, oh, okay, well, the manosphere is dead. And I'm like, whoa, read my book because I got a whole bunch of new ideas. We could rebuild a whole new thing. What
it once was dead. Any authenticity to it, I think, is pretty much dead at this point. So 20 years ago, when I found it almost, there was a lot more like useful positivity to it. There was a lot more camaraderie. There was a lot more like authenticity and a lot less commercialization. The monetization stuff hadn't really hit yet. This is in the mid 2000s.
Right.
And that's all dead now. It's nothing but a money grab now for 90 to 99% of it.
What I would say is that was inevitable because if you're a Ross Jeffries VHS DVD salesperson, you're kind of just running off of your own theory. As soon as mystery became mainstream, I would assume that behind the scenes, he met some people. I'm sure he met some bankers. I'm sure he met some lawyers. And there he learned all those monetization schemes. So when you enter into the mainstream, I mean, you're in the manosphere space just like me. There's bankers and lawyers, and sometimes they give good advice and sometimes they give bad advice. I'm looking for like a responsible monetization. Like I worked my ass off writing a book for 10 years by my book, right? Whereas they're going for the easiest, lowest cash grab, which short term is gonna fuck them over, and it's been fucking them over. And I told them it was gonna fuck them over.
And it's fucked over the space. It's fucked over the whole space. Like it's become super poison. And a good example is like about maybe 1 to 2 years ago, the Fraud Father and many and others who joined him with this. There was like this NFT thing, this NFT scam they were pumping.
Which is
Red Pill Lions, Red Pill Lions, Red Pill Lions.
Oh no.
And it was just a huge fucking scam. I mean, it was a scam from the minute they came out of their mouth, and they knew exactly what they were doing. And so these were guys who were like preying on these hopeless codependent betas to just suck their wallets dry, exactly like an OnlyFans hooker or a real life hooker that they're going to bitch about, right? These hoes are going to steal your money, but let me steal your money instead.
Well, if you spend a bunch of time with prostitutes, you're going to act like a prostitute, right? So one of the big problems of, let's say, stoicism or transcendental philosophy is you think that you can be in a shit environment without it mentally affecting you. You say, oh, I'm my own mental point of origin. No, dude, you hang out with prostitutes. And over time, those behaviors become normal to the point where you start acting like Cuck Murphy, right?
Yeah.
So if they're squeezing beta males, like, they hung out with prostitutes. Remember, Rolo was fucking messaging some dominatrix who was like a pegging specialist.
Recently, with his alt account that got exposed?
Yeah. That whole
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
so those behaviors are normalized.
A pegging specialist?
Listen, there's a demand and she supplies, right? So welcome to capitalism. And you can see that those behaviors leak in. So if you want to be a role model for men, you need to keep yourself distant and clean. Obviously, we can't stop the pegging specialist or Cuck Murphy from anything, but you just need to build a wall, and live a reasonably good life, because you will always leak. Psychoanalysis says you will always leak. So,
one of the speakers, Socrates, he had a thing very similar to this called the screaming narrative, and it's basically leaking. So if you listen closely to the way people phrase things, the sentences they build, and the words that they use, they're telling you everything you need to know about them. And that's what I kind of get from you with like Rolo hanging out with hookers. Well, Rolo ends up being a hooker, preying on men's souls and wallets, exactly like the hooker that he will bitch about on a live stream. And it's not just him; it's everyone else in the manosphere too. These hoes ain't loyal. Don't be a simp. Don't simp for these hoes. Simp for me. Give me your money. Like,
then don't hang out with hookers. Like, I think that one's pretty easy.
Well, law 2 of my book, The 10 Laws of the Alpha Male, law 2 is don't marry hookers. Because
that's a good one.
I married a hooker in accident, as you know.
Yeah.
So
long in the past.
No, it's fun. That's okay. It's hilarious.
But see, you moved beyond it. Okay, like I really went after you for it like 10 years ago, or whatever. But okay, you grew from it, right?
Yeah.
Here it's when you watch it and you're like, how is this masculinity advice? So I guess, I think our next project is to create a new manosphere which gives useful advice to man. Yeah. I think that'd be nice. I think the audience would appreciate that.
I think what needs to happen is actually referenced in your book towards the end, that there needs to be, I'm one of the only guys ever who tried to do this in real life, which is organize the manosphere to be something serious, something real. And it never became that, even though it had that potential.
You had some serious guys, though. Like, I can't comment on their personal affairs, but I think you had personal trainers that were cool. There were military men that were cool.
Navy SEALs, medical doctors, lawyers, clinical psychologists, like a lot of serious guys. And having dealt with those kinds of people, they don't want all of the spotlight. They don't want to do all the drama that the characters we were discussing do. And so if you could pull information from them and refine it into something, into a product, into a book, into something, then you could get something useful. But right now, there's so much cancer that's pulling so much blood that those men who are professional and don't want to get involved in the muckraking, until it's cleaned up, you can't have them. And I think that's why they pulled back, because I remember I'd go through your videos and I was like, oh wow, like this guy's a doctor, this guy's a surgeon. Wow, that's cool. Like, that's a cool model for masculinity, even if I'm doing something different. It was informative. Well, part of this is who I would invite. And even all the way through 2022, the last event that I did, there was still a lot of really powerful people coming out. Guys who are getting things done and changing laws in certain states, paternity fraud kind of stuff, the cucking, lawyers, psychologists, stuff like that. But it's very difficult. Like, that's what you're saying there is true, that it was very difficult to walk this line and invite those people, and then actually successfully get them to come speak. Because there was so much drama. Every year there'd be a new fucking cuckold, or a new federal agent I had to kick out, or a new sexual predator. You know, Jesse Lee Peter Eater was this Christian reverend who was banging, who was preying on these men that would come to his church to fuck them and put their dicks in his mouth, Mexican dicks often.
Okay. Well, so I mean,
it was disgusting, and this is every fucking year I had to deal with this shit.
With regards to federal agent, you know, I don't know why they took a hostile position, because I'm sure they could have recruited, you know, intelligent, athletic guys from your convention who cared about America. I would assume that's who you want in the federal workforce, right? But instead, they took this hostile position, which
actually brings up another thing I saw you write in your book that was really good. And it's direct confrontation with the system is almost impossible. I mean, I think the way you phrase it, it's not going to work right now. And whether it's, you know, me fighting with the media and make them great again, or Andrew Tate, or even Donald Trump at a much higher level, it's like this gargantuan effort to fight the system head on. And then all these beta males, or the whole population, is these flaccid, fat fucking beta males who all have beer guts and stuff.
The system just kind of has to run its course. They're going to run the dollar into oblivion, and then China's going to take advantage of it. And knowing that that's going to happen, you need to position yourself financially and socially, because, you know, no matter how many January 6th you do, you're not going to change anything, right?
Well, physically too. You mean like where you live? You live in Mexico now?
Yeah, I'm in Mexico. I love Mexico. Is what California should have been. You know, there's like, you go to a Costco here, you're like, wow, this is the Costco of the future. It's not the Costco of the future. The Los Angeles Costco is the Costco of 2000, right? So I think America got stuck in 2008. And after that, nothing's happening. Whereas if you go to Colombia, Brazil, nice parts of Mexico, you're going to see new aesthetics emerge. So that's how you know culturally America's already on the downward slope.
And you're banging big booty Latina women down there? What's going on?
Oh, so it's all of the difficulty of dating in my shit Spanish. So
Gotcha.
So you know, like I'm pushing it in my third language, and that's exciting. But to be honest with you, to finish my book, I had to lock myself in a house for a year and just read and proofread. So I'm slowly emerging out of my writing corner back into society. You know, to write a book, it's sacrifice. You have to bleed in, and boy, did I bleed into this book.
Yeah, it's fucking hard. I mean, even I wrote the 10 Laws of the Alpha Male, and that's a short ebook. It was not even that big of a deal, and even that took months and months. It's fucking hard to put together a comprehensive book that's worth something.
You know, you have a kid, and having a kid is much, much crazier, but it feels like what I imagine having a kid would be like. And so I'm reemerging. I'm going on dates again. And
let's talk about the kid thing. Let's talk about the kid thing. There are some, you know, so-called red pill alpha males. I won't say names, fraudfather. But Pearly thinks too is this red pill chubby Zoomer bimbo. And they a lot of them now advocate to be a high value alpha male. You have to get a vasectomy. You have to sterilize yourself. So is sterilizing yourself red pill in your book? Is that an apex?
It's just global. It's globalist propaganda. So they're gonna, the same way that they ran the Soviet Union, you know, into the abyss through internal treason. That's what they're doing with the U.S. And the year that I was born, there were more abortions than births. So having seen the globalists drive countries into the abyss, that's what they're doing. And these people, they don't know what globalist propaganda is and what isn't, and they're repeating a lot of it, right? So that's on one side. On the other side, I think it's really important to figure out a place where you can live, where your kid could have a good childhood, or your kid could, you know, do things that kids need to do instead of like a fentanyl zombie apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't want to have kids because they don't see a future. But what I would say is you need to move to a place. You need to get enough money in a place where you can have that future.
Yeah.
instead of fucking cutting off your balls. The fact that the fraud father actually is like the alpha male cuts off his balls, not in those language, but like close enough.
It was like number 3, a list of 10. Number 3 went viral. Was like get a vasectomy, and it's like
Yeah.
what the fuck.
Then he was confronted about it. Then he's confused. So
Yeah. Is there anything more beta in your book than getting a vasectomy, than sterilizing yourself?
I mean, it's up there. Like there's sterilizing yourself. There's tying yourself to a big fucking mortgage. There's a lot of stuff. But notice like those core features, the core features that affect it. Did you have a kid? How much money do you make? How much money do you spend? Can your kid play outside with other kids? They've never discussed that. And those are foundational to living in a healthy society. And like being a man is about providing those things, right? But when have they ever talked about it? So it's
What's the
my
thing
big,
that there's a lot of guys like the fraud father, I don't know, you will probably get this, but a lot of guys watching will have never heard this. That guy's accused all the time, like a lot of red pill grifters and whatever. They hate women, they're misogynist, you're a misogynist, Anthony is a misogynist, everybody's a fucking misogynist. I think the fraud father, and some guys like him, not all, but some at this like parasitic blood-sucking level, they actually hate men and they hate masculinity and they resent even stuff like fatherhood. So, for example, the fraud father will soon enough become a grandfather,
okay.
and you're going to see him tailspin even worse than he is now when that happens, because he knocked up his wife in the first place. He didn't want to become a father. He never had another kid because he didn't want to be a father in the first place. I don't think he hates his daughter, but he hates being a father and he hates masculinity. And there's a hatred of men that doesn't get talked about. And that's actually what's the undercurrent of him doing like a scam NFT and the people who help him do this kind of crap to bleed men dry. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but there's a lot of hatred of masculinity.
I'll help you. I'll help you. So I think he's a narcissist. He's just a full fucking narcissist, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And one of the telltale signs of a narcissist is they have poor object permanence. What is object permanence? Okay, so you have a young daughter, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can cover your face in front of your daughter and she doesn't know where you are, mm-hmm. right? So a narcissist has very poor object permanence, right? And so when you confront him, when you spin him around, it really, really confuses him. Now, you ran a masculinity convention. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I can see that there are masculine men like Jack Donovan there, right? He's going to fuck with you. Any masculine man is going to push into you a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to disrupt his safe space, and that's going to disrupt his mental image of himself. So he hates masculinity because any masculine man is going to fuck with you. I mean, we'll be friends after, but there's going to be a little bit of friction, mm-hmm. and he can't take it. So he has to surround himself with losers. And over time, it's just losers, 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 and no work gets done. Have you ever seen the Gervais principle?
No.
Okay, and the Gervais principle, at the top, there's like a sociopath, like let's say Andrew Tate. He's going to do whatever the fuck he needs to do, okay? Mm-hmm. In the middle, there's a loser who's status insecure. He's like, oh, I'll do whatever. And at the bottom, there's a clueless person. Clueless people speak in baby talk like, it's going to be okay, Tony, right? And as the organization grows, the middle of people who only can affirm themselves gets bigger and bigger, no work gets done, and the whole thing collapses. So what I'm going to say is the manosphere's peak losers, all the cool people left, and it's about to collapse. Yeah. So,
and yeah, I think it needs to, like I told you, for it to be rebuilt, it needs to collapse, it needs to burn down, and then it can be reborn, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, or however you want to phrase it.
I think we should rebuild it on economics, and I think ego psychology is liberal because ego psychology is about affirming yourself, right? And I in my book move away from ego psychology and say, look, if I'm wrong or if you're wrong, let's just admit it and move forward and get better theory. So,
regardless of how it's built, it's my view. I think you would agree that it needs to be serious and it needs to be radical. Truly and authentically radical, like a cultural revolution for men. And the manosphere had that potential within it, but it was never even remotely actualized. You talked about, for example, in your book, Paul Elam. He was, the civil rights leader, the men's rights leader. All women are retarded. All women are stupid. All women are hoes. And then, of course, the first thing he does is cuck in 2016 to, you called it a pretty young blonde woman, Cassie J. who comes along and talking, she wants to make a movie or something. And all of a sudden, everything he ever said went out the fucking window in 5 seconds.
He
And it's like,
needed female attention. Like when
yeah,
you watch, Cassie J, nothing against her. I think she was a reasonable reporter, especially compared to what we see now. But there was the men's rights people. They were morbidly obese. They're waddling around. And finally, a pretty girl talks, Cassie J, pretty girl, good for her. And they melt in front of her.
yep.
And that's why, like, people ask me, "Are you a men's rights activist?" I'm like, no, go away with that nonsense.
Yeah.
So it's
my last straw with Paulie
yeah.
Bloom, I've had a hot and cold on and off relationship with him over the years. I've interviewed him once too, a couple times actually. We've been on stuff like that, shows. But I saw him about a year ago, about almost a year ago, 9 months ago. He was bitching on Twitter about stay-at-home moms and how this is like these women are losers and blah 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 blah. And I'm just thinking, like, what the fuck else are women supposed to do than be a stay-at-home mom? Is there anything fucking useful and productive in life they can do? I would think that that's one of them. Be a mother. Motherhood is like the most useful and incredible thing women have ever done. And here's this fat fucking beta male bitching not only about women. Okay, there's a lot there to bitch at today, these fat women. But then you're bitching at stay-at-home moms, like doing the one thing, in my view, that they should be doing in the first place. I just fucking had it with this guy after that. I'm like, there's no end to this insanity, this endless loop of like fat retard going in circles.
He's alienated, he's ignored, and so he needs to make some kind of sound so someone will respond to him. And I think he chose that one. And the other thing is, like, this guy's a stay-at-home dad, basically. He's a stay-at-home dad without a kid. He doesn't work out, so he stays at home, right? I mean, I attacked him from being fat, for being a fat loser back in, I think, 2014.
Good.
So, and keep in mind, like, I grew up being a personal trainer and then running gyms, and then so I always had a keen eye of who's working out, who's with it, who's going to move forward. And when I applied that lens to Manosphere, it was just a whole bunch of fatties.
Yeah.
So
that's the one thing about the red pill I really liked, that I was already doing it before I found the red pill space in the Manosphere, but the advocacy for strength training, lifting weights, lift. I think that's actually one of the best things that the Manosphere has ever done in that space in particular, is just go to the fucking gym, lift fucking weights, heavy weights.
I have this book right here. Let's see if everything's going to fall over. Supple Leopard.
Oh, yeah, I know that guy. Kelly Starr.
Yeah. And it's an amazing book. So if you go on Married Red Pill, they talk about their lifts, but you can cheat your squat and your deadlift and your bench press. So I would say
I forgot about Married Red Pill. Jesus.
Oh, they're horrific. Get that book, Supple Leopard, fix your posture so you can squat and deadlift without herniating stuff. So I really pushed the lifting because I called them out. And the end of, remember TRP.Red with Red Pill School?
Yeah.
I basically said, hey, until you post physique, shut the fuck up. Like, we're not having a conversation. If you don't, I understand if you're disabled, whatever, blah, 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 right? But if you're a healthy man and you're not lifting, I don't give a fuck about your masculinity theories. That's when Rion and I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's an ethnic, whatever.
Rihanna Stone?
Whatever he is.
Yeah,
and the Roadster, they're like, oh, you're trying to embarrass me. And they skedaddled. They ran off. So,
side note, is the Married Red Pill a good example of a circle jerk within a circle jerk within a circle jerk?
Yeah, it's like a Russian nesting doll of circle jerks. And if you don't know their secret circle jerk language, it's not going to go anywhere. And they have like a groveling thread of like, my wife did this and I ignored her, and
my wife blew this guy and I'm going to take her back. Like there's a bunch of family beta males in the Manosphere.
It's like my wife blew this guy and I'm going to take her back would be 10 years ago. Now it's like, my wife yelled at me because I didn't dry the dishes, so I went upstairs and watched TV. I'm an alpha male. That's where Married Red Pill's at. It's
wow.
If he's a cuck, it's an interesting read. Like, he's a cuck, whatever, gross, right? But here it's like super petty. Like, my wife wants me to mow the grass on Thursdays, but I alpha held frame did it on Wednesday. It's small and it's suburban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing actually. I sent you that Indian Boss Queen article, that
Oh
essay I
my
wrote the
God.
other day exposing that fitness guy, this Chadzilla, AJ Cortez. But one of the reasons I chose to expose him for being run by his wife rather than being this like alpha patriarch Giga Chad that he plays on the internet is because I've been roasting a lot of frauds lately. There's, for example, a dating coach who he's been banging she-males and stuff like that. We got him on video admitting to banging she-males. Then he married a single mom when he makes fun of people who marry single mom, like all this goofy shit. It's like really over the top, right? Like Cuck Murphy. Cuck Murphy was not just an apex alpha male grifter, he was an apex alpha male grifter who was peeing on his wife and then farting on her and then she farts on him. And like it's just this is like ludicrous shit.
Right. It's
But the
wild.
but the goofy schmoofy fitness guy though, it's a lot more mundane than that. It's he's lying about his wife getting knocked up out of wedlock, which is a pretty minor thing that's been going
Whatever.
on for thousands of years. But then I see him beating people over the head with this, like they're lying, and they're not. They're telling the truth.
Well, okay, let me kind of pivot this conversation in a different direction. Like,
Shoot.
so right now we're in a globalized culture, and he's probably in some major metropolitan area, right?
Yeah, Texas,
And so,
Austin, I think.
okay, so there's a lot of Indians there. So I would argue it doesn't matter how alpha you are, a high caste Indian woman isn't gonna, anything. She's not gonna submit.
So a couple speakers actually reached out to me who know him, and they said the exact same thing. They just won't. They won't submit these higher end Indian women. They won't do it ever.
One of the things that I pushed is when you date outside of your race, you need a race specific dating strategy because genetically there's more difference across races than there is between genders. So I have an Asian guide, right? And I have a Ukrainian guide. So dating outside of your race is on hard mode. It's super hard mode. And you can attack him for hypocrisy, but I would say that
as a white guy, I mean, a lot of times you have it on easy mode as a white guy.
well, as a white guy, it might be easier to get into, sex or relationship. But once the fights happen, you're having a gender fight and you're having a culture fight on top of that.
Okay,
You're having a culture war, right? Okay. So, how do you manage a relationship with an Indian woman? There's no good way of that.
She won't even take his last name. They've been married for like over 2 years now. Like, how fucking pathetic is that? These alpha giga Chad patriarchs.
I don't know. Like where I'll kind of take a side is that how would anyone do it? I have 2 articles specifically on Indians in my book, right? With amazing art.
Oh yeah, the brown betas, the Billy Brown betas. Yeah.
Brown betas, because I had all these Indian clients and they pose specific problems. So I think as a white guy, being with an Indian woman is a no-win. It's like in Afghanistan. It doesn't matter how good of a general you are. I don't know the specifics of his deal, but having spoken to a lot of Indians and knowing about their wives and sisters, I think it's a big Afghanistan, Pakistan. No one's winning that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, you know what else I realized? You talk somewhat, in your book, you talk about the Oedipus complex here and there. I realized, and I'm going to put this in a newsletter with a follow-up to the Indian boss queen wife, that he's actually playing out, like you've probably seen a lot of Manosphere guys, an Oedipus complex. So, for example, he's a Jewish mama's boy who was raised by a Jewish single mom who controlled him, like every Jewish mom. It's a very typical thing, right? Stereotypical.
So now he's going to get it from an Indian woman.
Exactly. He went out and became the man his mother loved to fuck, and then he married his mother. And this is what every fucking goofy schmoofy beta male does. I don't know about Rolo, the fraud father necessarily, but I know Condom Sharp did the same thing. He was raised by a fat single mom, so he married a fat single mom.
What I'll tell you about Oedipus complex is there's this gendered drama and there's a gendered language that people engage in. And one of the big reasons why the manosphere exists is because when someone is stressed, when they're facing economic hardship, they want to reenact a gender role because it's comforting for them. When things are stressful, they're going to go to a prostitute, and that prostitute's going to call them an alpha, right? So by reenacting gender roles, it's familiar, and it's going to calm them down.
Well, yeah, they're recreating what they had with their mother.
Yeah, so it's called defensive Oedipalization. There's a lot of theory on it, a lot of really, really good theory, covered in the books behind me, covered in my book. And the problem with defensive Oedipalization is it's not going to move you forward. it's a coping behavior. And
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I would think you would say that a beta male needs to rise above his Oedipus complex, raised by a single mom or not, and don't marry your fucking mother. Don't
you
become the man your mother wanted to fuck or did fuck.
you need to just not see things in gender terms and see them in these neutral economic terms or in social terms. Because as soon as things get gendered, people are trying to as soon as things are gendered, people are trying to repeat the culture that they grew up in, and the cultures that we grew up in are dying. So you need to move into a new culture and create a new system, right? Um,
Yeah, it's
and
become the fentanyl apocalypse, the zombies, right?
fentanyl apocalypse, exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of a conservative manosphere which holds back on movement, if you're in a healthy society, be conservative. I'm all with it. If you're in a dying society, you need to move. You need to be radical, right?
This is
So
exactly what you got right in your book. I loved it. And you were talking about how these whether it's a boomer conservative, this neocon boomer, or like manosphere boomers like the Fraud Father and everyone else, they don't want to be assertive and aggressive and replace what they're opposing. They just want to oppose it and then do nothing and have nothing to counter with or to overcome or to conquer. Your book, you talk about this. Like, this is actually a big problem with boomer conservatives. They have nothing to fucking advance. Like, when I did
was
Make Women Great Again, it wasn't just to be anti-feminist. That wasn't like the point. I wanted to abolish feminism, and I still do, kill it, and then have something new replace it. Whether it's Make Women Great Again or some new cultural phenomena,
right.
something that's a lot better and a lot more based on reality, other than beyond feminism, which is just absolutely irrational and insane.
So in political theory, there's the question of what happens after the revolution, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so you got rid of King George, right? Boom, America had the Constitution, right? So if you want to have an alternative to what's going on, you need to start reading. We could have a disagreement on what we should be reading or what's after, but
Yeah.
you need to start binge reading before, so you know where to go. You need to preemptively go. And if you look at the manosphere, they said, I'm a pragmatist, praxeology. I don't give a fuck about theory. And so they never, if they're so red pill, where's the alternative?
Yeah.
Where is it? It's nowhere to be seen. So
they won't even, they won't even give you the illusion of an ideology. Well, they'll deny it's an ideology and call it a praxeology. And it's like, then what are you going to have that's fucking new? What should a 21-year-old American man do today? Like, you're trying to answer that, I think. Like, what the fuck do? You just sit around and jerk off and bitch about women all day? Like,
so I would say you get remote income and you go into a society that's not in collapse, and then you have to integrate into that society, because you're never fully Latin and you're not American, because every year that you're not in the US, you're still speaking 2010 English and they're on that Zoomer English. So you need to join into a new culture and you need to integrate so you can have a healthy family in a new cultural setup, right?
well, let's talk about that cultural setup. So, you've seen this, I'm sure, and even guys watching have seen it. A lot of boomer conservatives are worried about communism. There's going to be a communist revolution in America, communism, Comrade Kamala. And
Okay.
that's not impossible, I would say. But your view seems to be, and I've seen this elsewhere too, is that that's not really what the elites are probably never going to allow that to happen. They don't want a communist revolution. Communist kids, these Zoomers, are useful fucking idiots. And what they're after, I think, is what you're saying, is liquidating the middle class and destroying it and replacing it with some sort of like neo-feudalism or some sort of like shit like that.
So there's communism where you're ruled by the worker, right? What you're going to see, like I watched Donald Trump yesterday, right? And he misused the word communism. You're going to see communist social tactics liquidating the middle class for the benefit of the upper class. So it's, in theory and philosophy, these terms get really delicate. I got Karl Marx right here. Boom, look at him. Shabam. So very few people will actually force themselves to read the books, but you and me as thought leaders, you have to read the books. If you're talking about political theory, you have to. It's just part of the game, right? So, but there's no communism. They're going to liquidate you with previous tactics, and then you're going to be ruled in a neo-capitalist, rentier fashion. That's what's going to happen.
And so basically, there's no future where Amazon and Walmart are state owned. Like that's not going to happen. It's just going to be something that's even more fucking retarded.
The state is owned by Amazon. You could argue. I got this Nicoland Fang Numina. That's a good one. So we're going to be discussing, like what is postmodernism, and so go buy Fang Numina. That's another book that I try to digest for my audience. And there's an article called Meltdown of how as economic exchange is going to speed up, social structures are going to melt. So,
and that would be like the collapse of like churches and organized religions and stuff like that, splintering or falling apart.
Yeah. So the church is an institution that does Oedipalization. It tells you about gender roles and family roles, but it's not modern enough. It can't keep up. They're not innovating fast enough. So now you have a Netflix church, right? So over time, private enterprise is going to take over, let's say, those traditional institutions.
Yeah. And by Netflix church, you don't even mean like a church live streaming. You mean like young women will be brainwashed and get their beliefs,
their values
from Netflix.
From Netflix. And
literally.
That's what happens. If you remember the George Floyd black box posting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love what you said that the black box was trading above ass pics on Instagram.
So what I want to point out, because we didn't talk about sexual strategy, maybe we could talk about sexual strategy in our next call. What does it mean to do sexual strategy in a postmodern place? It's most of the time, your social status is locked in as whatever you are. Okay. Now, in a time of chaos, like a George Floyd riot or a pandemic, those social structures are weak. So if you're a man who's middle attractive, this is your opportunity to requilt yourself up higher, right? So I have an article, How to Get Laid in a Riot. It's a joke and it's not a joke. I also have an article about how to throw a party during a lockdown, right? If you're in a man in the middle and there's chaos, boom. The best time to buy is when there's blood in the streets. And that could be a stalk, but it could also be social structures.
Yeah. I love it, man. Good stuff.
Good.
Let's see if I got. I had a couple just random things I pulled out of your book. I wanted you to talk about.
Nice.
What is a beta turd? Like this formless beta turd. What is that? Can you elaborate what that means?
I mean, you and I experienced it. It's just Rollo. Like whenever you confront him, he just mushes away. It's just talking to him feels like stepping on diarrhea.
Yeah.
And you and me watched Rollo fucking diarrhea himself away for the fucking past 10 years. I was hoping for some kind of new movement in the manosphere, but I just have to shove him out and do it myself. Yeah. So he's a beta turd, and you're a beta turd connoisseur. Like, sorry, you had to put yourself through that. But yeah.
But on a personal level, for the guys watching, being a beta turd, for example, is like really self-destructive in terms of if you want to bang women off Tinder or something. Like being the shapeless, spineless loser. So how does that apply to guys personally?
If you don't have a strong conviction, if you don't believe in something, and as social structures shift, you need something to hold on to. It could be religion, it could be a philosophy, it could be anything. If you don't have anything, that's who's going to kill themselves. So during the pandemic, a lot of people killed themselves, people who didn't have religion. So if you need a religion, you need a philosophy, you need an ideology, the storm's coming, you need to hold on to something. So psychologically, it's going to be very detrimental to you.
Yeah. This is what I've thought too for a long time. Like, I'm not Christian, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Muslim or anything like that. But people who are devout, who are like really fanatical about this stuff, at least they believe in something. And the world is a pretty dangerous, dark place by default, or it can be. And so at least if you have something, some Muslim dude who wants to blow himself up after fucking his cousin or whatever, at least he believes in something strong enough to die for it, right? Rather than the shapeless beta turd who won't live for anything and won't die for anything and really has no values until they just kill themselves, like you're saying.
So yeah, that's the postmodern condition. Right, yeah. That's the postmodern condition. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You were born in Russia or you were born in the United States?
I was born in Russia.
When did you move to the U.S. and California?
I moved my parents pulled me over in 1995. So I was born in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And then the way most immigrants work, we live in immigrant communities for a while, and then we slowly start integrating into the American population.
What I'm getting at is like how I'm trying to figure out how being born in Russia and then growing up as an immigrant community affected your personality today. Because obviously you're not like some lefty hipster out of California who loves voting Kamala and vote Biden and all this crap.
When you're an immigrant, you're taught that you need to go to a good university no matter what. And if you don't get good grades, you're a loser. So I was taught by my parents and my grandparents to have an academic rigor. And this academic rigor, the Native American population lost. So when you read my book, you're going to see it's very well put together. And it's put together in a very structured Russian style. So if you open up an AK-47, it's structured and you can fight with it. My book's like an AK-47. It's structured. You read this to your professor, you're going to have a gunfight on your hands.
Yeah, I love it,
man. So I guess what I want to say is there's a lot of good stuff in Europe buried in philosophy books that American audiences can benefit from. And I'm working really hard to give it to your audience and to expand the conversation.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Before we close out, you mentioned you didn't want to do too much political predictions, but you were a big Trump guy. I know you got famous. Your 15 minutes of fame. You wanted Samantha Bee talking about the Bukkake special that these people are in, the media special. What is your view now of, I mean, this year has been pretty super wild politically. You know, the assassination, the convictions, the president, you know, Biden dropping out. Like, what's your view on what's going to happen this year?
I'm surprised the Democrats couldn't find any better candidates like that. They had to settle for Kamala. You know, like, I don't like any Democrats at all. They're gross. But Gavin Newsom of California seems better put together. He's more presentable.
Yep.
He looks more presidential, even if he's a shit. You know, in law school, I know people who defended Harvey Weinstein from law school. So there was a track that fed into the Democratic Party of California. So I'm surprised the Democratic Party couldn't bring anyone better. If you listen to Alex Jones, he says if Trump comes in, there's going to be a lot of chaos. So I think it's just going to be chaos. And
by chaos, you mean like burning, looting, and murdering kind of stuff, or
just in the beginning, and then there's going to be Democrat dirty tricks all the way through. So it's going to be really gross. So I just recommend everyone here to figure out remote income. And look, we're all young men. You want to date, you want to take your daughter for walks in the park, you want to take your wife to nice restaurants. When all that nonsense comes, don't suffer another lockdown. Don't put yourself through another depression. Go to a nice country, either permanently or until it blows over. Because why are you putting yourself on house arrest? What did you do to warrant house arrest? Nothing. So when that bullshit comes, start planning now so you can get the fuck out. And so you don't waste half a year of your life or 2 years of your life like we did last time. That's my big advice for everyone here.
One of the big issues that seems to be on the ballot for voting this year in the United States is World War III. I mean, this is a constant thing in the news, whether it's Trump talking about it or more obviously the Jews and the Ukrainians going crazy. So what's your view on like the possibility of World War III? I mean, you were born in Russia. This is a big player in what's going on.
So there's 3 World War III possibilities, right? There's China taking Taiwan, which I'm not that well versed on. There is Ukraine. And in Ukraine, if the West can't get a solution that they feel comfortable in, they might start escalating and putting more and more Western troops on the ground. And if that passes a certain threshold, Russia's going to start escalating, right? So that could be a source of World War III. The other one is, I think, the Freemasons need to rebuild the Jewish temple, and Iran really doesn't want to do it. And in order to rebuild the Jewish temple, they need to demolish the Dome of the Rock Mosque. So that could be there's this Freemason secret teachings of all ages. Boom, guys, good.
Oh,
yeah, everything. Well, it's just chaos.
I know the feeling, man. I said a lot of stuff recently.
Yeah. So when you look at the Freemasons and the Third World War that they predicted, it's over the rebuilding of the temple. So there's three possibilities. And
is it your view that we're already in the beginning stages of World War III? That's one theory I've seen floated around.
like, what is a war? And then you can talk about like what is a hybrid war. Then you could say, well, was the Cold War World War III, and now we're on the Fourth World War.
Yeah.
So they start playing these I have a degree in political science, right? So they start playing these definition games.
Yeah.
Was the pandemic a world war?
Well, you look at Ukraine and Israel though, and all that stuff. These are multiple hot zones happening at the same time, and both seem to be like proxy wars of the West versus like Russia and China and shit. So I'm just kind of spitballing out loud, but it's especially having a kid now makes you really think about this stuff. Nuclear holocaust is bad enough when you're single.
So start looking at like Argentina and places that are completely out of the way. But I think they want to do a war. It's just going to come down to the appetite. And I was watching the Sean Ryan podcast, and he said that Donald Trump said that he spent a lot of money rearming the United States, but now all those armaments went off to Ukraine. So maybe because of that, it's going to take longer because the U.S. has to rearm again. So there's a lot of delicate factors happening. And then there's also CBDC. So there's a lot of variables that I'm not close enough to. Basically, what I would say is do another convention and go be friends with someone from Goldman Sachs or something like that, and then you'll have more data points. That's one of the benefits of being in our position is we can have high power friends who either tell us something or stuff slips, and that'll help your prediction. So if you want to know when World War III is, please do another convention, do a big one, and get some big people there, and you'll start hearing those whispers.
Yeah, find a bunch of Jews, get them involved. I'm part Jewish actually myself.
Okay, perfect.
Ashkenazi, so.
Okay, are you on your mother's side?
I don't know. I got my DNA tested years ago, and I lost the original data, but it showed 15.6% Ashkenazi Jew.
If your mitochondrial DNA is Jewish, then you're Jewish. So.
Yeah, if it's your mom, you mean, rather than your dad.
Yeah, because your cells have a different DNA. There's a mitochondrial DNA that's different nucleic. So that's the easiest way of knowing.
Is that how that's how they trace it, right? Through the lineage. I mean, it definitely showed that. I just don't remember which side it came from when they had it.
If you have your 23andMe, look over there, and then off you go.
Yeah,
and then
to get it back done.
Cool.
Well, all right,
fun,
man.
I love this podcast. Let's do another one about dating in the postmodern realm.
Let's do it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Gay Lube Oil, thanks for your time. Guys, make sure you get The Pillars of Wisdom. Link in the description. It's filled with alpha male advice, extreme alpha male advice. You should get it. And I appreciate your time, man.
Really grateful. Looking forward to the next podcast. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm ending the stream now.